Hi and welcome back. Today I'm going to describe the process that I'm going to use to turn these three pieces of steel into a set of straight edges. My goal is to be able to start making tools that have more precisely fitting parts like this set of calipers. Now this is a modern dial caliper, of course, with precisely machined parts, but several hundred years ago the first ancestor of this tool started showing up. And they would have been made in a common blacksmith shop that simply learned how to up their game a little bit in order to be able to produce the closely fitting parts that went into making a pair of calipers like this. So for them to do that, they would have needed to first develop a set of tools that would allow them to map out the surface of the whatever plate they were working on and refine that surface more accurately than you could possibly do by eye. Now, I'm not trying to get into the whole chicken and egg discussion about whether surface plates were invented first or straight edges. I was lucky enough to find a good description about how to make straight edges a long time ago, and I need a set of straight edges, so that's what I'm doing today. The process of making a straight edge without using any kind of a reference surface involves systematically comparing the edges of three separate pieces of metal. And in order to do that, of course, you need to have each piece clearly marked so that you are able to keep track of what you're working with. As you can see, I've cut away the back edge of each plate so it's obvious which edge is the straight edge, and I've also numbered them by drilling a hole right through the plate. So 1, 2, or 3 holes tells you which plate that I'm working with. And the holes are also at one end because you need to be able to keep track of the orientation of each plate as you're working with them. The first step is to choose one of the three plates to use as a referenced edge, and in this case I'm going to be using plate that's labeled as A or 1 in the actual samples that I'm using. Next I'm going to be taking plate B and I'm going to fit it as closely as I can to plate A. So that means I'm going to be taking away material from plate B until the edge of plate B follows the contours of plate A as closely as possible. And then I'm going to repeat the same process with plate C. Again, I'm only removing materials from plate C. I'm not touching plate A. It's my reference edge. Now, just to be clear, it doesn't matter how crooked the edge is on plate A. The important thing is to have plate B and plate C match that edge exactly. And don't forget, this is the process that was used to make the world's first straight edges. So until we get these straight edges done, we're actually not going to have any way of evaluating how straight the edge is on plate A. At this point, plates B and C should have exactly the same profile, and because they were compared to plate A, they should also be mirror images of the profile of the edge of plate A. The last step in the process is to compare B and C together. If everything was done right, all of the high spots should line up perfectly with each other. This time, to fit the two plates together, I'm going to try to remove the same amount of material from each plate, working both sides down together to get the best fit that I can. Your aim at this point is to have the surface contact between the two plates be as consistent as possible. For the first couple of passes, the plates may only be touching in 2, maybe 3 spots, so it's pretty easy to keep track of where you need to start working. Here you can see that I'm simply using a light from behind and just looking at where the plates are touching, and I'm just registering that spot with my finger, and then I can take the scraper and start working those areas. When I experimented with this process a few years ago, I removed all the material with a file, and I got pretty good results fairly quickly, but then later I realized that the file was really just acting as a jointer, and I was riding over all of the high spots, and that kind of tipped the balances in my favor. For this set of straight edges, I'm going to be using a scraper to remove all the material from the edges. A scraper only has one point of contact, so it can easily ride along all the irregularities in the edge. So this should give me closer results to what they could have expected, 400 or 500 years ago. I also anticipate that this is really going to extend the amount of time it's going to take to make these straight edges. For those of you who are familiar with my Nuremberg box project, you'll remember that I introduced this tool in the 27th video of that series, and there'll be a link for that in the description. At this point, I'm a little further along in the process, and I'm comparing plate 2 and 3 together. You can see how the high spots are all registering in exactly the same spot. I'm starting to coat the edges with a marker just to be able to have a really clear reference of where I need to work. I'm going to continue comparing these two edges together and removing roughly the same amounts from each piece until I get a wear pattern that's pretty even across both plates. So here's what the two plates look like at the end of this step. I've clamped the two of them together so you can compare the edges. You can see how the pattern is very consistent, but there's still a lot more to go. However, it's a mistake to think that you can correct that problem at this point. Don't forget that you are removing material from two plates, so you're working on two variables, and even though I have a good contact, the likelihood of all of these flat surfaces being straight is very unlikely. So even though it's hard to do, the key to this step is really to do as little as possible. Just knock down the high points as much as you can, but don't build in any problems by trying to do too much. So what I've described to you so far is all of these steps that are involved with comparing the three plates together, but that isn't the whole process. Now that I have the first round done, I need to select another straight edge to use as the reference, and then I start the whole process over again. I try to make the other two plates conform to that reference edge as closely as possible. That gives me two plates that are identical. I flip them towards each other, compare those two, get rid of all the irregularities as much as you can. And then when I've gone through all three plates, I go back to the top and start the whole thing over again. And I keep doing that over and over until I get the results that I want. And what you'll find is that each time you go through the process, the major differences between the plates are going to start getting smaller and smaller until eventually they're just non-existent. So the time that this process is going to take is going to be totally dependent on the level of accuracy that you're after. If you're just after fairly good straight edges that are, usable, you'll get results that you want very quickly. If you want super accurate straight edges, get ready for a long haul. So these are the straight edges as they stand right now, and I'm guessing that I'm probably about halfway through the process. So I'm going to keep working on these to see what level of accuracy I actually can get. So I will be doing a part 2 to this video. That'll be sometime in the future because I'm only going to be working at these a little bit at a time. But when I'm done, I'll report back, and hopefully I'll have more to say about the whole process. So we'll see you next time. Hi, I'm Dennis, and thanks for watching. If you have any questions, you can contact me by using the email address that I have shown here. If you like the channel and the work that I'm doing, please consider becoming a patron. Every dollar you contribute will bring me one step closer to being able to produce videos full-time.